Welcome, Lumineers and fans of the happiest card game on earth. My name is Jonty. You've just been put in the inkwell alongside set 5 of Disney Lorcana, Shimmering Skies. Today was the day of the second ever Lorecast, an official sort of state of play announcement from Disney Lorcana, and whilst it wasn't as explosive as the first one, it did give us a first look at the new set coming out in August. In a separate video, we'll be taking a look at the full product line that was announced, but now we're just going to take a look at the new cards, of which we have 22 to take a look at. We're going to go and look through these in set number order, which traditionally has also been alphabetical order by each colour. Doesn't seem to be the case here. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But first of all, the new IP for the set is Wreck-It Ralph, and when I say new, I am using quotation marks. We did actually see a Wreck-It Ralph card way back in set 2 with Pick a Fight, but now Wreck-It Ralph alongside a pile of Sugar Rush racers are joining the fold for real. We start off with a one-costed inkable 2/2 Vanellope von Schweetz Sugar Rush Champ. She's a Storyborn Hero Princess Racer with 1 lore at common rarity. So just a basic card here, most definitely going to be used for a Floodborn target, I'm sure. But if not, we're happy to see these basic stat lines so that we can draft and play sealed with the set. Next up, alongside Wreck-It Ralph, Frozen 2 also got a pile of new cards. Again, not a new IP to the game. We'd already received the Knock, and maybe a few of the other else's perhaps are from Frozen 2, but here we're really leaning into it. We have a 9-costed uninkable 3/7 with 3 lore, Kristoff Reindeer Keeper, a Dreamborn ally with Song of the Herd. For each song card in your discard, you may pay 1 less to play this character. He also has Bodyguard, and he's a rare card. A few things to note here. He's basically a Chernobog for songs. Could be, the top end of a Steel Song deck. I'm not really sure whether Steel Song needs a huge bodyguard towards the end of the game, and that 3 on the strength is obviously that sort of unmagical number that we don't like to see. But, still could be a pretty solid inclusion towards the end of the game plan for that deck. The other thing to note here is Bodyguard is the second listing on the card below the specific character ability. Normally, that's the other way around. It's the first time we've seen a keyword ability like that below the character ability. Nothing doesn't really matter at all. I just thought it was worth pointing out. Moving on then, a lot of these cards were provided in a media press kit, which is why you're seeing nice high-res versions of them here, but not all of them were, so some of them are going to look like this, and these are sort of screen grabs from the Lorecast itself. This is a 4-costed inkable 2/2 for 2 lore, Bruni Fire Salamander, Storyborn ally with Evasive and Parting Gift. When this character is banished, you may draw a card. Uncommon card with art by Kendall Hale. I don't think this is terrible. It's probably a little understated for the cost because that card draw ability is pretty nice, but there is perhaps a space for this in the Emerald Amethyst low to the ground heavy questing. Sits alongside Curse Merfolks and Pascals and Pegasuses and all that. The big problem with this there is that obviously the 4 slot is very competitive in that deck with goats and rabbits. Still, that set 2 bounce package of Merlin and Mim, they're still the ones to beat, especially in this colour. Also a 5-costed inkable 2/5 with 1 lore, Elsa the 5th Spirit, Dreamborn Hero Queen Sorcerer with Rush, Evasive, and Crystallize. When you play this character, exert chosen opposing character. Super rare with art by Lisanne Courtiou. And again, this is another one that's doing what Amethyst does so well in cards like Madame Mim Fox. It's obviously happening a turn or 2 later, but does have a few extra bells and whistles because of that Evasive and the ability to exert something when it comes into play. The big problem here is that it only has 2 strength natively. Diablo answer, I guess, but perhaps a little bit late on turn 5. I suppose if this can be paired in a Ruby Amethyst build with something like Mary's Fishhook that's already come out a little bit earlier, you'd also need a Mary on the board though to make that cheap enough to use on the turn Elsa is played. Not sure about this one. Really love everything about it, apart from that number 2 there. If that was a 4, I think this would be incredibly playable. It would be insanely playable. But as it stands, I think this one just misses the mark on the base stats. Next up, a 4-costed inkable 4/2 with 1 lore in Emerald, Scar, Vengeful Lion, Storyborn Villain with Ward, and Life's Not Fair, is it? Whenever one of your characters challenges a damaged character, you may draw a card. Rare card with art by Cesar Vergara. Love the incredible art on this one with the scratch lines through the Simba cave painting there. And the real stylized background. I think it's incredible. As far as the card goes, we're seeing how powerful Ward can be, and Emerald Steel definitely wants to try and build this sort of pinging damage deck, which this one seems to want to go into. I don't know. It's definitely one to take a look at alongside all of the other cards in Emerald and Steel that care about damage characters or are easy ways to damage characters. I could see playing that. 4-costed inkable action song in Emerald. What can I say except you're welcome? Shuffle chosen character, item, or location into their player's deck. That player draws 2 cards. An uncommon card with art again by Cesar Vergara. Mary looking great here as well. This is an interesting one. This is one of those ones that allows you to really decide how this card is used. It only references players. It never says you or your opponent. You can use this as a way to remove a huge threat off your opponent's board. Yes, you are giving them 2 cards. I think there is something to be said perhaps about using this on your side of the board as well as card draw perhaps a little later into the game. We did see Yzma in Amethyst a little while ago that had a similar sort of ability to this, and more often than not it was used to remove one of your smaller characters and give you a little bit of gas as you move into the end game. I could see this happening here as well. Perhaps your opponent has an incredibly established board and your Amethyst Merlin Rabbit is sat there not really being able to do much, not seeing the bounce targets or what have you, that can sing this and remove itself and draw 2, which is probably about the most you can expect to get off it anyway. Yeah, I don't hate that. Definitely one to play around with. Now we move into a pile of racers from Sugar Rush. 2-costed inkable 2/2 with 2 lore, Taffeta Mutton Fudge, Ruthless Rival, Storyborn Ally Racer, uncommon card with art by Connie. One of 3 Taffetas that you would expect to sit next to each other numerically, but they don't. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit moment. So for now, just a basic card that will have a Floodborn that we'll want to shift onto it in a little bit of a moment. But first of all, we have a 3-costed inkable 1/4 with 1 lore, Wreck-It Ralph, Demolition Dude, Storyborn Hero with Refreshing Break. Whenever you're ready, this character gain 1 lore for each damage on him. This is a rare card with art by Lasan Koatiu. This is one of those ones where you read the ability and then you get excited, then you think about it for a moment and actually realise that it might not be good, and then you start thinking about other cards that we've had in previous sets that seemed unplayable that now maybe might make this relevant again. The one I'm thinking of is On Your Feet. I think it's called On Your Feet. It pings everything for 1 and readies it. So that would instantly gain you a lore with a couple of these out, or if you've got some more damage on it anyway, this challenges in to something and takes 2 damage back, I guess, and then you play On Your Feet and you take a 3rd damage and ready it and gain 3 lore. Yeah, it's a hoop to jump through, but you can definitely see how some of these cards are spread over a few sets to make us go back and take a look at the older ones that at first didn't really seem to make much sense. You can see how it all sort of ties together, but even still, I'm not really sure this is great. 2-costed uninkable 2/3 with 1 lore, Turbo Royal Hack, Storyborn Villain Racer with Rush and Game Jump. This character also counts as being named King Candy for shift reasons. This is an uncommon card with art by Juan Diego Leon. So interesting that we get a whole new ability for this character that is basically sort of using a disguise. In the previous set, we see a few Ursula cards that are actually Vanessa, and usually the Vanessa-ness is just listed in the subtitle of the card. But here we see the card be Turbo, but also technically work as King Candy for a shift target. We haven't seen a King Candy Floodborn yet, but it's pretty much guarantees there's one coming, I guess. Interesting way of doing it. Also, 2/3 with Rush is pretty solid on a 2-drop. So again, if we do see this Ruby Steel Challenge Matters deck that the game is desperately trying to get us to play, I think this is going to be an inclusion in that. It's a very slight upgrade to the Queen of Hearts we got back in set 2 with an extra willpower for the cost of being uninkable. That Queen of Hearts again wants to go in that ruby steel deck because the Floodborn version hover also cares about challenging mattering. So yeah, I definitely think it's a thing. I hope it's coming in set 5. I've always enjoyed the idea of that deck. It's just never quite made it off the starting blocks. Next up, a 5-costed inkable 3/6 with 1 lore, Donald Duck Pie Slinger, Floodborn Hero Knight with Shift 4. Humble Pie, when you play this character, if you use Shift to play him, each opponent loses 2 lore, and Raging Duck, while an opponent has 10 or more lore, this character gets 6 strength. This is a legendary card, the first legendary we're seeing here, with art again by Cesar Vergara. Amazing art, looks fantastic. I love the sort of the soft focus on the stuff in the foreground there to give it a bit of depth of field. I think it's amazing, and Donald continues to look awesome. There's a great hidden Mickey on the frying pan on his front there as well. Love everything about this card apart from the abilities, really. Unfortunately, I don't particularly think this is particularly impressive. It's almost like the 2 abilities have a bit of a numbo. When you play this character, opponents lose lore, but his second ability actually wants opponents to have a decent amount of lore, and even when the opponent does have a decent amount of lore, all he's becoming is this huge body, a 9/6. You know, and we've always said that the higher the strength number goes, at some point it's relatively diminishing returns. Yes, this most probably will be able to trade into anything on the board, but I think that's, you know, this and a shift target, and I can't see it just yet. Hopefully we'll see other cards that make this one seem a little bit more playable. 4-costed inkable 4/4 with 1 lore, Rancis Fluggerbutter. Chocolate, there's no way I'm not going to curse when I try and read out one of these. Chocolate Charger, Storyborn Ally Racer, common card with art by Ellie Hurry. As it stands, just a perfectly acceptably statted basic card. Be interesting to see if that Racer classification there comes into play, if we see maybe a location that cares about them, or an action that does perhaps, but as it stands, you know, you're playing this for flavor if nothing else. A 3-costed uninkable 2/4 with 1 lore, Snowana Rainbow, cool competitor, Storyborn Ally Racer with Rush, a common card with art by Samangaliso Sibaya. Love the rainbow sherbet hair on this one. You know, a 2/4 with Rush is definitely has a home somewhere, I think. But yeah, that 3 uninkable. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. It'd be interesting to see if these racers do anything together, because on their own, none of them are particularly impressing me, honestly. A 1-costed inkable 1/2 with 1 lore, Taffeta Mutton Fudge. Again, this time crowd favourite, Storyborn Ally Racer with Showstopper. When you play this character, if you have a location in play, each opponent loses 1 lore. Common card with art by Carlos Lucy. You'll see in a moment there are a couple of these racers. Actually, it might just be the Taffeta ones, actually, but they do care about locations, and that makes sense. They're driving around the board, they're driving around the map and going to different places. So that'd be interesting to see. Currently, a lot of the stuff that really cares about locations is also in Ruby, so this might be sort of fleshing out that as an archetype. I'm quite excited to see that, to be honest, because I'm a big fan of the Ruby locations, although at the moment, my Ruby location deck is Ruby Steel with a pirate sub-theme, so I'm not sure how sort of thematically these fit together. With all the decks that I'm not sort of playing competitively, you know, the ones I'm taking to League, the ones I'm using in multiplayer, the theme is incredibly important to me. So I have Amethyst Steel Brooms built, and it's for the most part Brooms and Sorcerers, apart from Bruno, who's in there because it's just such a a fun card. And then my other one that I'm running a lot is Ruby Steel Pirates and Locations. I call it Land Ho, and it's all about pirates moving around. So yeah, so like if I'm playing competitively, I'll just play whatever the best card is. I don't really care about the art or the name of them, but for all my sort of non-competitive decks, I do like to try and keep the theme going. So I don't know whether I can make pirates and Sugar Rush racers work. We'll see. And then here is the Floodborn of her, a 4-costed inkable 3/3 with 1 lore, Taffeta Mutton Fudge, Sour Speeder, Floodborn Ally Racer with Shift 2, and once per turn, when this character moves to a location, gain 2 lore. So a really couple of interesting cards here. I'm going to put them both on the screen together so we can look at them for a moment, because they actually work quite nicely together as long as you're playing them off curve, because on one you will play Taffeta. She doesn't see a location, so nobody loses lore, although chances are nobody's got much lore anyway on one. And then you shift this on 2, could move to a location, but again, you've not done anything else, so still don't have a location on board. So what you actually have to do here is have a location on 1, play the Taffeta on turn 2 with an extra law. Maybe you could put another 1 drop down, I suppose, and then you would have to play Taffeta, this one, the Floodborn, on 3, shifting for 2, and it gives you 1 to move her to a location, I suppose. So that makes sense as well. So you'd have to have you need a location that is in Ruby and is cheap to play and only costs 1 to move to it. Do we have that? Training Grounds. Our option right now is Training Grounds. Obviously, there will be a second colour in the deck, and we are going to get locations in this set as well. But currently, the play is Training Grounds on 1, Taffeta Mutton Fudge and something else on 2. Turn 3, you quest with Taffeta Mutton Fudge for 1, you shift this one onto her, or do it in either order, actually, it doesn't matter. Then pay the 1 to move Taffeta over to Training Grounds, gain 2 lore, and profit. Forecasted uninkable 3/3 with 2 lore, Vanellope von Schweetz, random roster racer, Storyborn hero princess racer with rush, and Pixlexia. When you play this character, she gains evasive until the start of your next turn. A rare card with art by Hunya Lee. This, my friends, is your Diablo answer. I don't know whether by the time this comes out, Diablo is still going to be a big problem. I think probably it will still be very prevalent in the meta. This is kind of your answer. It comes down the turn after Diablo, although Diablo won't be exerted. Oh, no, well, if it's shifted, it will be, but then it's already been out for a turn. So either way, it's not the perfect answer, but it is a stat line that deals with Diablo and sticks around currently. So yeah, this could see play purely as a Diablo answer, which is kind of ridiculous to think about, but yeah, maybe. And if not, it's just a good challenger, and actually not just a bad quester either. So yeah, this could see play. Apart from the uninkability, this is actually kind of fine. Okay, we have another couple that were from the lore cast. This is a forecasted inkable 3/4 with 1 lore, Prince John Goldlover, Storyborn villain prince with beautiful lovely taxes. You can exert this to play an item from your hand or discard with cost 5 or less for free. Exerted. This is a super rare card with art by Connie. I don't know items well enough to know whether this is good or not currently. I can't think of what item you would really love to get back with this exerted. I mean, I guess the Bulbsicles are fine, and the Fortisphere and what have you, because they're still drawing you a card even if they are exerted. Perhaps we see a really good sort of 5 or less item, a grand dragon. Was it the Great Stone Dragon? That's coming in exerted anyway, so you can play this, and it's just literally just getting free value. Maybe that's a thing. Yeah, could be fine. The interesting thing about this one, though, is that there is another version of it right here. The exact same card. You'll just notice that the art is different, and it has the promo stamp. This is, I'm going to go as far as saying, this is our first real alt art. Yes, we have Enchanteds. Yes, we have the challenge cards and the set champ cards. But they're all sort of like very different foiling and full art and what have you. This is, I think, no, we got Dalmatian puppies. That's a lie. We got Dalmatian puppies. This isn't the first one at all, but it is still worth noting, because the way you get this version of the card, not this huge one that Ryan's holding, a regular sized one, but with this art, is by purchasing the new introductory box for Villainous that isn't out yet. It will be coming out a little bit later on. This card's just inside it. The artwork here is reminiscent of Villainous artwork. For those of you who don't know, Villainous are on a little bit of a tighter leash than Lorcana is. All of the artwork in Villainous is screen grabs, stills from the movies, but they have been overpainted, so they've been repainted by sort of professional painters to give them more of a storybook look. But the poses and the layout is a screen grab from the movie. So that's what we're seeing here with this Prince John. They've chosen this. Prince John is one of the characters in the original Villainous box and continues to be in this introductory version, I think. I'm a big fan of Villainous. So I probably won't mind picking this up, although I do have the base game already, so it's a little irritating that I just have to buy this introductory product again. I would maybe rather have seen this be bundled into a new bad guy box that I could add in if I not have some repeats. How do I feel about a single card being promo? I suppose it's, it's just this card. It's not, it's not necessarily incredible. It's just new art. It's lovely art. And I think you only really have to go out your way to get this if you are a completionist. So I like that. I like the fact that it isn't, you haven't got to go and buy the 4 boxes of Villainous to make sure you've got your 4 copies of this. I think you can just go and grab one of these if you're a real completionist, which annoyingly I am, so I will be. I don't feel great about it though. Another legendary then, a 6-costed uninkable 3/7 with 2 lore, Merlin Intellectual Visionary, Floodborn Mentor Sorcerer with Shift 5 and Overdeveloped Brain. When you play this character, if you used Shift to play him, you may search your deck for any card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Legendary card with art by Jake Parker. Woo, we have a lot to talk about here. This is our first true, proper, full 100% tutor in the game. Yes, in the last set we did get Alma Madrigal, who let you go and search for a Madrigal and put them on the top of your deck. Here, it's any card you like, and it goes to your hand. It's about as good as a search feature in a game like this can be. Obviously, it is caveated by having to have shifted this Merlin out. We currently don't have any incredible targets in the same color. There are there's one maybe, I think, with support. It doesn't really see any play. I talked about this a lot on Twitter today and Discord and what have you. A lot of people saying there currently isn't any targets that are good for Merlin. I kind of disagree. I think this card heralds the arrival of a blue-purple deck that runs the Madam Mim and Merlin package for the mid-game and then uses this to go and find your final piece, your Tamatoa or your Lucky Dime or what have you. And then also that does bring into play the Magic as a Spell in Amethyst as well, that I'm surprised didn't really see any play, but I just don't think we had the full pieces for that deck. I think this is showing us that deck might be a thing. I don't know whether it's fully competitive or not, I don't know, but I think at least it can be built now. So yeah, exciting stuff for that reason, and obviously I'm sure that the set 5 has other Merlins in here as well that may make this even more playable. Yes, it's difficult to have an ability that's only on when shifting. The only one that really sees play that has that ability so far is the Pegasus from the last set. You do see that one see play because even if you don't shift him, he's still just a relatively well-statted evasive. The shift is a bonus, whereas here you wouldn't really be too happy about putting down a 3/7 for 2 lore basic character on 6 if you weren't able to shift him. So yeah, for that reason, it may make it a little trickier, but I do think there's an Amethyst Sapphire Sorcerers deck, because they pretty much are all sorcerers, all of the Mims and all of the Merlins, the Magickas, this guy, all the other stuff, they're all sorcerers. So if we see a sorcerer payoff or 2, I do think it could be a thing. Perhaps it's wishful thinking, only time will tell. Our last Sapphire card then is a 3-costed Inkable, 2 move cost, 9 willpower location, the Great Illuminary, Radiant Ballroom. Warm welcome. Characters with support get +1 lore and 2 willpower while here. This is a rare card with art by Carlos Ruiz. I actually got a little bit excited about this one when I saw it, and then I realized that it was 2 to move here, and it was +2 willpower, not +2 strength. I thought this was going to be a really great piece for the Alice support deck. But yeah, any location that doesn't have native lore and has a move cost of any more than 1, let's be honest, is struggling to find a space in the current meta, and I don't really think the ability here is good enough to make this one have it change, honestly. The only other thing I'll say about this is I've been very much clear on the record that I'm not a huge fan of the Lorcana original stuff creeping into the game. I did say that, items are probably fine. I think locations are fine as well. I don't particularly mind this one, honestly. There are some locations in the last set that I didn't even know what they were from, so they could have well been Lorcana originals for all I cared. Again, I'll stick to my guns and say until they make a Martin character card, which they shouldn't do because the characters are glimmers and Martin isn't a glimmer, so it should never happen, but until then I'm probably okay with occasionally some of the OG lore creeping in through cards like this. Next up, a 7-costed uninkable 6/6 with 1 lore, Kronk, Head of Security, Floodborn Ally Captain, Shift 5. Are you on the list? During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may play a character with cost 5 or less for free. It's a super rare with art by Nicholas Cole. I think this is pretty good, actually, especially if we get a playable shift target for him. I could also just see this getting some play in an Emerald Steel Floodball Matters deck as well. Turn 5, and you've got a Morph out, or you have a Kronk out. You know, turn 5, you can shift this, challenge into something, and then get a free Tragic Hero or Champion of Sherwood down. It's pretty good, right? I absolutely can see this being play, even though it's uninkable. And last but by no means least, a 3-costed inkable, 2 move cost, 7 willpower, Bad Anon, Villain Support Center. This is a location with the ability There's No One I'd Rather Be Than Me. Villain characters gain Exert and pay 3 to play a character with the same name as this character for free while here. Also has a native Laws, a rare card with art by Sulo Nate. The first thing I did when I saw this was go and have a look at what steel villains we have. It's not necessarily a great color for villains, really. The only ones that we currently have like multiples of in the color are Namari. None of her particularly see play. There's quite a few Captain Hooks, but none of them you're really going to jump through the hoops for here to play for free. There's currently one Steel Hades, maybe, that you wouldn't mind throwing to this. No, because that's Titans. Doesn't really care about other villains. Yeah, at the moment, I don't know what the support for this card is. I would love to see a villains deck pop off, especially using the Amber stuff way back from set 1, the Hades that cares about villains, and then a little bit later we got that Queen of Hearts that cares about villains. But really, I don't know whether steel is the color for that. Hopefully we'll see a lot of support in this set and future sets to make something like this be playable. So there we go, a pile of cards, a good mix, and some really good looking fun stuff in there. But yeah, what's all this about the numbers being mixed up, eh? For those of you who don't know, all the cards are numbered from 1 to 204, and the numbering works in the same way for all the sets so far. It first of all goes by ink color, alphabetically, so amber, amethyst, emerald, ruby, sapphire, steel, and then within each of those colors it moves through characters, then songs, then items, then locations, or songs and items for the first 2 sets, and then within those groups they go through them alphabetically. So if you look right back to set 1, the very first card is Ariel on human legs, I believe, and the very last card of the set is a steel item, Plasma Blaster. And that's been how all of them have worked so far. The only real difference moving forwards was the locations came in, but here we see Vanellope part of On Sweets as number 6 in amber. You would expect that to be a card that begins with the letter E or F, really, and it comes before Kristoff at number 13, K obviously being before V in the alphabet, whilst the other ones seem to roughly line up with where you would expect them to be. The only ones that really stick out are the racers from Sugar Rush from Wreck-It Ralph. I've already done my nerdy due diligence and gone through the movie and had a look at the standings on the races to see if that's where they line up, but right now I can't really see it. They don't seem to, like, no order seems to pop out for me at all, so I have no idea what it is. I will say though, it's a little irritating if I'm completely honest, especially from somebody who works in an LGS point of view. We obviously keep a binder of singles available for people to look through, or also for my staff to go through when we sell an order online, and they've all used to this format. It's how Lorcana does it. It's also how other games do it as well. Usually they work through colors and they work alphabetical. So if you know that you're looking for a steel version of Namari, for instance, you know that it's going to be pretty close to the back of the binder. If you want to get really into it, you know that each color takes up 4 pages of a binder. So if you're looking for an amethyst that begins with the letter A, you know that it's most likely going to be on page 5. Makes it very easy to go and find, and makes the time spent on doing that work much shorter, and therefore makes it more profitable to do. So this is going to be like, this is probably going to sound really silly and obnoxious and not worth the time and effort, but it's actually quite irritating to not know that Vanellope von Schweich will be on page 4 of my binder, because my head is just built to know that a V in amber will be on page 4 or page 3 or 4 of the binder, and no, it won't. It'll be on page 1 if we go by set numbers. But then if we put them in actual alphabetical order in the binder, which will help customers because they'll realize that it's alphabetical and go through. The problem is then if we sell singles online, the sheet we print out is coded and it will say 006, and then my staff will go to page 1 and will go to number 006. So it's such a specific thing that's only going to really affect LGSs who do singles in a binder and don't have their own system, perhaps. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to vent a little. Sorry. Anyway, we've got some awesome cards there. There'll be another video coming along very soon where we look at the full product line, including the new Gateway product for set 5 that I'm very excited about. Remember, for all Lorcana news, you'll get it right here as soon as I can sit down at a computer after it turns up, which is usually the same day, sometimes the next, depending on what my life looks like. So if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Until the next one, be good.